Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning. That is it. That zing, guys, that zing. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee this morning. Today we're going to geek out. A lot of people really like the videos that I do when I get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of the processes behind things and cut out the fat and tell you exactly how to streamline and do whatever it is to do. Well, sometimes you have to do things down in the root level, and that's what we're going to do today. So, how do you change Starlink's DNS server for better speed and for better security? Before I get into it, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go check them out. Go over to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. Pick something up. It is free, just for you being here. So let's get into this. First, what the hell is a DNS server and why should you even care? Well, think of it this way. It's very easy to remember a website like JCristina.com in comparison to remembering 35.209.244.216. That is the actual address of JCristina.com. So we don't want to have to remember that big long string of numbers. We just want to type in Google or Facebook or JCristina.com. So DNS servers do that actual translation, changing a name into a number. I guess we could look at it this way. You remember old school, long time ago, some of the young people out there won't remember it, but there was such things as phone books, and some of them were this big. You can literally beat someone down with them. Not that I've done that. Anyways, they're this big. And let's say you were looking for my phone number because you wanted to talk to me. You would open up the book and you would go to C's for Christina. You would find Christina's and then you would go all the way down to the J's to where you see Joseph. So you have Christina, Joseph, and a phone number. You would be able to then take your phone, dial that number, and talk to me, right? That's the exact same thing that happens in a DNS server. The name JCristina is associated with that big long number, that 35.209.244.216. It resolves that name to a number. This makes it very easy for communication on the web. It makes it very efficient. So what I did is I looked up the best free DNS name servers out there. And there's about 20 that I found that were really good. And I broke them all down and I tested all of them for about a week. And what I found was there was about 5 that worked out really well for me. That was the Google public DNS server that everyone knows about, which is the 8.8.8.8. There was Cloudflare, which is 1.1.1. There's OpenDNS. There is CyberGhost, as well as the Quad 9. Those were the 5 that worked out well for me. The least of them was CyberGhost, so I ended up doing more testing on the top 4. So what I did is I did some testing to see how long does it take for me to ping out to these DNS servers? Why is that important? Well, when I ping the DNS server, I know how long it's going to take for that DNS server to respond back to me. So after doing all of my testing, which is better, which one is faster? Well, it depends. Now, I know which ones are faster or better, quote unquote, for me, but they're going to be different for you. And why is that? The reason that is because we go through different POPs. We've talked about this in previous videos where the point of presence for me currently is Georgia. Even though Miami is closer, don't let me get started, but it's currently Georgia. So the DNS server that's closer to the Atlanta, Georgia POP is most likely going to be the best for me to use. Now, what I did to find out which one was quicker is I opened up a bunch of terminals and I did ping tests to all of these IP addresses. So I was pinging 8.8.8.8, 1.1.1.1 to see which one had the least amount of latency, number one, and then also which one had the least amount of packet loss. Because when you go to different DNS servers or different IP addresses throughout the web, there is different latency involved based on geographical distance between you and them. So it is very important to get something that is quick as possible, that has the least amount of latency, but then also the least amount of packet loss. Packet loss is not good. Whenever you have a lost packet, that means that the computer has to send a request again to be able to get the answer back. That is not good. Now, how do you find out what DNS server is your computer currently using? I'm so glad you asked. So if you're on a PC, you're going to click on Windows Start and then search for MS-DOS. Run the MS-DOS application, and then you're going to type this string in. Now, all of these strings, all of these commands that I'm going to give you, once again, they're very highly geeky. I'm going to put all of these in the description of this video as well as in the pinned comment. So you can simply just copy paste it into your terminal window, and that is it. What you're typing here is ipconfig-all, then the pipe find str, which stands for find string, quote, DNS \space servers, end quote. And what that is going to do is search through your ifconfig and show you the DNS servers. For my computer, the DNS server is 8.8.8.8, which is Google's server. Now, if you have a Macintosh, you would go into your Launchpad and then type in terminal. Once your terminal window opens up, you're going to put this string into that terminal and hit enter. This command will show you the exact DNS server that you're using on that computer. Now, like I just said, on my PC, it's currently set to 8.8.8.8, which is Google's DNS server. Well, I really didn't need to set that. I didn't know that at the time, but I didn't need to set it. And the reason being is because SpaceX's Starlink got into bed with Google from the very beginning. What does that mean? That means that all of the SpaceX or Starlink terminals that are out there, they are all pre-configured to automatically route traffic through Google's DNS. That means 8.8.8.8 is the primary and 8.8.4.4 is the secondary or the fallback DNS server. So this is done automatically. But my computer was set up as 8.8.8.8 way back when because I was using AT&T as an ISP for many, many years before Starlink. And everyone knows you don't want to use your ISP's DNS servers for DNS. They're normally slow. So I changed mine to Google's, and it worked out quite well using AT&T. We're going to change it again in just a minute. So while Google is a very fast DNS server, there are some problems with Google. Google basically sells your data. They share your data with third parties so they can target ads at you all the time. Whereas after doing some research, I found that Cloudflare did less of this, almost none of it, according to what my research shows me. So that makes me feel a little bit better. You want to be as anonymous as possible on the internet, and you don't want your data constantly being sold to the next guy out there. Remember, your DNS server knows everything. It doesn't matter what you try to cloak on your computer. It all has to go through 8.8.8.8, let's just say, all the traffic. It doesn't matter where you're going. So Google knows where you're going no matter what. So I am going to switch over to Cloudflare, but not only for the security and a little bit extra privacy, but also it's a little bit quicker for me. Once again, might not be quicker for you. Now, I did some hop tests. Now, to do that, what we use is a traceroute. And this is very easy to do. So if you get into your terminal, doesn't matter if it is your Windows machine or your Mac machine, and you type in traceroute or traceRT space 8.8.8.8. When I hit enter, you can see the traceroute going, and it shows you how many hops and how many milliseconds at each individual IP address that it has to stop at before getting to 8.8.8.8, which is Google's DNS server. And as you can see here, it took 8 hops. And the very last hop that was actually in SpaceX's internal network is the 149.19.108.85. Everything after that is moving into Google. All right. So we're seeing a bunch of hops, but one thing that I don't like to see is those asterisks. Those are timeouts. So what that means is it has to wait to time out before rerouting to the next server, which it did, which is the 108.170.249.161. That now produces 8 hops to get to Google's DNS server. Now, let's do the exact same thing with Cloudflare, which is a traceroute of 1.1.1.1. Now, once again, here we can see the very last hop that's internal to SpaceX is the 149.19.108.83. Now, you're going to ask me, how in the hell do you know that, Joe? Well, I did an errand lookup, and I just went and took a look at each one of the IP addresses and saw who owns it. And that's it. So once we get now down to the 206.71.12.60, that is outside of SpaceX. That is now moving into 1.1.1.1, which is Cloudflare. But what you recognize here is there's 6 hops instead of 8 hops. So less hops is better. Lower latency is better. The goal is always to get as close as possible to your final destination. Our final destination here is the DNS server. So 8 hops compared to 6 hops is 2 hops different, and you're going to end up with a lower latency going through Cloudflare. Now, what does this equate to in real world time? Well, when you resolve or look up a web address, constantly DNS is happening. Once again, if you type in JCristina.com, it has to go through DNS and find out what is the IP address that it needs to send you to. Every tiny second that has to wait to do that resolution, to resolve that address to the IP address, you're waiting. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that use your ISP and you'd never have changed your DNS server, and you type in an address and you're sitting there and you're waiting and then all of a sudden it pops up. Well, all that waiting, a lot of it has to do with your DNS, where it's taking forever to resolve the DNS to finally put the request out there to the IP address where it needs to go to. So for me, we can see that Cloudflare is going to be quicker. Not only is it great because it's quicker, but also Cloudflare is going to give me a little bit more privacy. So now the question is, how do you change the Starlink's DNS server? The short answer to that is you can't. And I know there's a lot of you out there being like, well, why in the hell have I been listening to this damn guy for so long? Well, there is 3 workarounds. Now, the first workaround is probably the one that you really don't want to do, but you can. And that involves changing the IP address of your DNS server on each device. Your phone, your tablet, your PC, your Mac, whatever. You have to do it for each device. Not ideal. Well, option number 2 is a replacement of the Starlink server altogether. So you would go out and buy a Wi-Fi 6 AX, preferably a good router. Make sure it's a good router. Matter of fact, in the description below this video, I'm going to put a couple of routers that I would suggest. Anyways, you would replace the Starlink router with the new router, but there's always a give and take here. The problem with that is you no longer have access to the Starlink app. That means you're not going to be able to see if there's any kind of outages or communications through messages, through support. You're not going to be able to see if there's any obstructions or do speed tests or anything like that. So while yes, some people will want to do that and just use their own router, I prefer option 3. So option 3 is basically taking your Starlink router and putting into bypass mode, or as I call it, bridge mode, so that it's providing another router, a Wi-Fi 6 AX router, the IP address from the internet. That's it. And does nothing else, and gives the rest of the functionality to the router that you purchased, the router of your choice. Now, at that point, you still have the functionality of being able to log into the application, but the secondary router now does everything, and you have complete control over it. And having complete control over it allows you to go into the router and set your DNS into the router itself. So what that means is every device that logs into that router will get that DNS. And not the generic DNS, not the Google DNS. It will now be able to get the 1.1.1.1 that we want it to have. Now, I'm currently using 8.8.8.8, which is the Google DNS, which I told you I was using from the beginning. Now, I'm going to give you a quick bonus. I showed you how to figure out what DNS server your device is currently using. I showed you on the Windows machine as well as the Mac machine. Well, there's another way of doing this. If you go into a terminal window on a Mac or on a PC, you open up that terminal window and you type in nslookup space JCristina.com. On mine, you'll see that the server is Google and the address is 8.8.8.8, and the name that we were trying to reach was jcristina.com, and it will show you the IP address. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to change it extremely easily in Windows. Now, it's very similar in a Mac, and bear in mind, I'm going to show you how to do it down and dirty, literally in a prompt, sitting in a terminal, in comparison to using the GUI and going from clicking here and clicking there and all over the place, and then people get confused and it doesn't look the same. I'm going to give you a command and it will just do it, period. And a lot of you guys, like that. And that's what we're going to do. Anyways, to start out with, we're going to go into Windows and click on that Start button. From there, we're going to search once again for MS-DOS. This time, we're going to right-click on MS-DOS and say Run as Administrator. We have to run the MS-DOS or open that terminal window in administrator mode because we're doing administrative processes here. So at this point, we're going to type in netsh. And from there, at the netsh terminal prompt, we type in interface IPv4 show config. And at that point, if you go up to the very top, you will see an interface name. Mine is called Ethernet. And underneath that, you'll see statistically configured DNS server, which is 8.8.8.8, and a secondary just underneath it as 8.8.4.4. Now to change this, it's very simple. Copy paste this into your terminal window. Interface IP set DNS name equals, then quote, whatever the name is for your network, which for mine is Ethernet, then source equals, quote, static, address equals 1.1.1.1. When I do that, what it does is it changes the primary address, the primary DNS address to 1.1.1.1, and it deletes the secondary. Now we need to add in the secondary. So now we type in, once again, down below, copy paste it, interface IP add DNS, name equals, once again, quote, Ethernet, end quote, address equals 1.0.0.1 index 2. Now what that does is it adds in the secondary. So now it's very easy to see that this worked by simply typing in interface space IPv4 show config. And if you go up to the very top, for mine, it has Ethernet, and then underneath that is the DNS server is set to 1.1.1.1, and right underneath that, you'll see 1.0.0.1, which is the secondary. So we're all set. It's already done. You don't have to reboot. You don't have to do anything. Now, once again, you can get this all accomplished by using the GUI, going into either your Mac or in your PC, going into the network settings, then going into DNS and doing all the changing in there. But for me, just entering a simple line of code that I've given to you makes it super simple. You can't mess that up, right? Just change the things you need to change and that's it. Change the name of your network device and change the IP address to whatever you want. Hit enter. Done. The same thing with the secondary. Change the name of the device and then once again the secondary. And that's it. So now that we have that done, any requests from this computer out is going to go through Cloudflare's DNS server. So for me, it's going to be quicker and it's going to be a little bit more private. Okay. For you, it might be a little bit different. You might want to use Google. You might want to use OpenDNS. You might want to use Quad9, whatever the case might be. Now, this is the exact same procedure for bringing in a VPN into the mix and now pushing all of your data through the VPN instead of using whatever your ISP gave you, or for us, whatever Starlink gave us, which is Google's 8.8.8.8. So if you want me to get into some VPN stuff, let me know, but the procedure is literally identical. You're going to change things out the same way that I just taught you how to do it, but you're going to add in the VPN information. You're going to sign on with whatever VPN you want. I'm going to do some research most likely on VPNs because a lot of you have been asking me for it, and I don't like to recommend anything unless I've tried it and I know that it's good. I don't like to be like, oh, I can't tell you how many of these companies have came to me to be affiliates, and I'm just not that guy, right? So I might do some testing of some VPNs, and the one that I find to work the best, I will let you know what it is, okay? So if you want me to make a video about VPNs down the road, let me know in the comment area below. If you've gotten anything from this video, please thumbs up it. We have a ton of Starlink videos. Go to our Starlink playlist. There is probably 10, 12, I don't know. There's a bunch, a lot of how-tos, what to do, what not to do. There's a lot of Starlink coverage in there. If you're here for just tech stuff, hopefully this helped you just in networking alone and changing your DNS server, possibly even moving into a VPN. Now you can see kind of how you do it if you get it. And you could just copy paste it. Once again, in the comment area below, the pinned comment as well as in the description, everything will be there. So you could just copy paste, just to make things super simple for you guys. So if you have appreciated this video, once again, throw it a thumbs up. That would be so great. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, please subscribe and click this little bell icon over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like, and if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all.